Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. So hi, everyone. Welcome to another wellness workshop. So I'm Kiyomi with Center of Life. And then we also have the amazing Devon with us. Hey, Devon.
Hi, everyone.
And we're super excited to bring back Connie with Digital Bridges this week to talk about emotional agility, your super secret skill set. And so tonight, Connie is going to lead us through discussion on how to have healthy relationships and create healthy boundaries. And we're also going to discuss emotional intelligence and trust and resilience and how to build a support plan to help us through tough times, which is a really needed and well-timed wellness workshop, I feel like right now. So this session will be recorded and it'll be posted on our YouTube page later for anyone else that might not have been able to catch all of this tonight. It's also live streamed here in Facebook world, and we do have our live captioning on. So I will send out those links a little bit later, but I am going to go ahead and pass it to Connie. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat on Facebook or here on Zoom, and we'll make sure to address any of your questions or concerns. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pin Connie's screen and you can go ahead and take it over. Thanks so much, Connie.
Thank you so much, Kiyomi and Devon. I love you so much. Thank you so much always for having me. I know Miss Andrea is with us listening. Andrea, I love you to death. It's so good to see you tonight. And hello to everybody out there in live stream Facebook world. Thank you so much for being here, whether you are with us live today or you're going to catch this replay later. This is one of my favorite classes to teach. It is actually now part of my Bold Boss Bootcamp program. So this is something that is so vital that I make sure that all of the entrepreneurs that I work with take this class and that this is always part of the conversation for us. So we're going to talk today basically about how to handle our emotions and how to build relationships with others. Really, emotional agility is all about leadership, and that is leadership starting with how you lead yourself, because that really is the crux of leadership. It all starts with how you lead yourself, and then how you lead yourself guides and bleeds into how you lead others that are around you in your world. Now, this is a topic that is something that is very much undertaught. Nobody sits down typically and teaches us these things. The education system is just now starting to catch on to things like social emotional learning and teaching some of these things to youth. But there's skills that are the biggest determinants to whether you're going to be both successful and happy in life. So that's why I call it your super secret skill set, because nobody's really teaching these things, but they're the biggest determinants of how far you're going to go in the world. So being able to navigate both your own emotions and those of the people around you and building those boundaries, building your resilience, these are skills that are going to serve you across a lifetime. And what I want you to understand up front and foremost is these are skills that we should always be talking about. They're not the type of things, it's not like math. You learn to add 2 + 2 = 4 and you know that forever. Emotional agility, emotional intelligence is something that's going to change depending upon what you're going through. And life is always going to be throwing new things at us. I call it the debris of life, because think about life like a whirlwind. We're all in that whirlwind. We're all in a bit of chaos and trying to get everything done and trying to manage all of the things in our individual worlds and make sure that we are really managing all of the swirls, so to speak. And then life throws the unexpected at us. And I call that the debris of life. And sometimes that debris is no big deal. It's just like getting blown in the face with a leaf. So maybe you are running late or you get stuck in traffic or something along those lines. Annoying, but not devastating. So that is actually still something to cope with. And then there are those things that are like a refrigerator through your window in that tornado of life. And that is something like you lose a job. Maybe you or someone in your family is going through a health crisis. The pandemic, hello. Those are the big things that hit all of us. And hi, Joy. I just wanted to take a second to say hello. Thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you. And anybody, feel free to interrupt me anytime you have something to add. I love to make these conversations. I know not everybody is in a position where they can go off of mute and speak, but you are welcome to do so. So we are going to learn to cope with all of those unexpected debris, all of the unexpected debris of life. And that is what your emotional intelligence and your emotional agility really is all about. So with no further hesitation here, I am going to go ahead and share my screen and bring up our presentation in full. Put you into presentation mode. And let's get into this nitty gritty and talk about how we are going to manage all the feelings of both ourselves and others. Now, your emotional agility comes down to 3 essential factors, at least that I have broken out. Those are your emotional intelligence. Your emotional intelligence is really your foundation for living a life that is full of grace, full of ease, and really masterful in how you deal with life and how you get along with others. The second piece is boundaries. Setting healthy boundaries is a gift that you give to both yourself and to everyone around you. And we're going to talk more about how to set those healthy boundaries. And then the third piece is resilience. And your resilience is really your ability to cope with that debris of life that I talked about, your ability to cope with the unexpected, cope with the changes of life, and to not be taken down by them, to bounce back from them, and to continue on in a successful journey. So let's go ahead and jump right into these with emotional intelligence. There are 5 factors of, oh, I skipped one. There we go. There are 5 factors of emotional intelligence, and I'm going to run through them here quickly, and then we're going to dig into each one in depth. So those 5 factors are self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social communication. So these 5 elements are really going to lay the foundation for everything we talk about today in regards to leadership and how you lead, starting with leading yourself and then leading others as well. Talking about self-awareness. Self-awareness, knowing yourself. This is about knowing your personality. What are you good at? What are you not good at? What thoughts, beliefs, motivations, and emotions are happening within you? So the first thing to do is just start to notice those things. We're often not trained to stop and notice our feelings, let alone to deal with them. So the first step of emotional intelligence is awareness. That self-awareness allows you to understand what's going on, as well as how other people may view you and perceive you, how they're going to perceive your attitude, your responses to them in the moment. So it's really a fundamental communication piece. It starts with knowing yourself. Now, once we know ourselves, we can move into managing ourselves. So once we've cultivated self-awareness and knowing ourselves, we can learn to manage those thoughts, feelings, and reactions, even to our own weaknesses. So let's say that, for example, patience is not our strong suit, and we know that. Hello, party of one right here. Patience is not always a strong suit for me. And I know many other people are in this same boat, but I know that about myself. So knowing that allows me to maintain control of that. So when I feel myself getting impatient, I can acknowledge that to myself. Okay, I'm getting impatient. It's time to stop and take a deep breath. And now we're going to manage that. That taking a deep breath is this second piece of emotional intelligence. Because I was able to recognize that trait in myself, I'm now able to manage that trait and remain in control of how I project myself, which that helps to make sure that you're really presenting yourself the way that you want to present yourself in the world. You want to be able to put your best foot forward, right? So that's what we're always aiming for. This self-management skill is what allows you to put your best foot forward no matter what life throws at you. No matter what someone else is saying, you can always bring it back to that self-management piece, because you can become, once you're aware of the feelings or once you're aware of the tendency in your personality, now you can begin to manage that. So that is our second piece of emotional intelligence. Now, our third piece is all about motivation. Motivation is about what gets us moving, what initiates, what guides, what is our goal-oriented behaviors, and what really drives that for us. So it's what causes you to act. So if you're thirsty, maybe, I'm sorry, so if you're going to get a glass of water, was it because you're thirsty or reading a book to gain knowledge? So whatever those motivation is, I'm thirsty, I'm going to go get that glass of water. I need to learn more about how to use social media for my business, so I'm going to go read a book about that. Those are both different forms of motivation. So did you hear how there are two different forms? One is intrinsic and one is extrinsic. Let's dig into those a little bit in the background of our examples here. So we're talking about external, extrinsic goals and motivators. Those are things like deadlines, social status, so making sure you keep your job, making sure that people think highly of you, earning that paycheck, getting money, getting prizes, winning of some sort. Those are all extrinsic motivators. Failure is also an extrinsic motivator. It is something that actually can propel us into something better. And perks then are the opposite of failure. So those perks are those external, extrinsic motivators. So they're coming from outside of ourselves. So our boss is giving us deadlines. Our need to pay rent is giving us a need for money, so we're going for that paycheck. We're looking to win prizes so we can have more stuff. All of that is external for us. So that external gain is one form of a motivator. Now, the second form of a motivator is your intrinsic motivator. Those are things like your self-worth. I want to own a business because I know that I am worthy of building that kind of generational wealth for my family. Knowledge. I have a wealth of knowledge, so I'm going to utilize that. That is an internal, intrinsic motivator. Growth. I am huge on growth. I'm very intrinsically motivated when it comes to growth. I think it's important to continue learning. You can see I have passion about growth. Those are all internal motivations. In fact, for me personally, that is why I do the kind of work that I do, because I am so intrinsically motivated to help others. I have that dedication, that sense of fun and purpose very strongly intrinsically, and I want to share that out with the world. So I'm aware of that. I have my emotional intelligence. I'm self-aware of those motivators. That allows me to manage those skills. Those are positive skills that I then use those motivators to help me navigate my own business. And you can do the same thing for yourself. That means knowing what you're good at. What are your intrinsic qualities that you're good at? What are your skills? And then what are some extrinsic goals that we can add to that? What kind of skills do we need to develop? What kind of learning do we need to do to improve upon where we're at now? It's all about those motivating pieces that are going to cause you to take action. You want more money? I work with teenagers a lot. With teenagers, it's all about external motivation. They want that money. They want that social status. They want to be social media influencers. So when I'm working with teenagers, one of my favorite things to say is, I am not above bribery. So that is a really strong example of extrinsic goals and extrinsic motivators. I think we would all agree that we're largely driven by success, that we're largely driven by people congratulating us, or that social status that comes along with things. We all want to have more money. Those extrinsic goals are very, very strong. And then internally, we all want to feel good and we all want to feel like we're being purposeful and that our passion is being utilized. So, by again having your self awareness of these motivating factors, you can then put that into practice in your life and you can use that to help you attain things and keep yourself going and not get bored in the process, and really stay driven and stay moving forward. And then our last piece here of emotional intelligence is social communication. And here's the big piece: 93% of social communication is nonverbal. That's talking about your body language. That's talking about your tone. That's talking about your facial expressions. All of those things tell a story. And all of those things are perceived by others. That's one reason why the pandemic knocked us all for a loop. We had to change how we were communicating, and Zoom allows us to see at least some of those things. We can see each other's facial expressions a bit more. We can hear each other's tones, but there's also a vibe that even can't be captured by Zoom. And we all kind of learned how much of that communication happens in person. And how much of it is not just about verbal and not just about the communication skills, the verbal communication skills, but the being together part. So 93% of your social communication is actually nonverbal. Now, the 7% that is verbal is about your conversation skills. That's about starting and finishing conversations, maintaining a topic of conversation, taking turns in a conversation. And these are skills that you can develop. For example, again, I think it's best to use myself as an example because then I can't complain because I have permission from myself to use the example. I know that I have a little bit of ADHD and I tend to squirrel off into different subjects. I find it difficult sometimes to stick to one particular topic. So I know that about myself, and I've learned to self-manage that social communication piece by noticing when it happens and then quickly turning my attention back to the original topic at hand. So I hope you're seeing how each of these 5 pieces build upon each other. Now, the last piece of that social communication is really understanding shared and assumed knowledge. How much information does the other person already know, and how much do they need to know? So you can see this really differently with different people. For example, I tend to be an oversharer. If anything, I want to tell you the whole story from A to Z and each little point in between. At the opposite end of the spectrum, you have the monosyllabic teenager, again, is a good example. The kid that you say, "How was your day?" "Good." Okay. So that's a little less information than we would like to get out of you. So that understanding shared and assumed knowledge and how much information you need to share is a bit of a balancing act there. We'd like to hear more than, "Oh, good." But we maybe don't always need to hear every single little detail to find out that, we had a good day at school, we got an A and a B on a test. We don't have to go all the way down to I had to stop and tie my shoe 3 times in the hallway. That's the kind of things that you balance when you're balancing how much information should be shared. And I like to say it really is all about balance when it comes to those topics. So now that we are working on that emotional intelligence, okay, so we're working on our awareness of ourself, our self-management, motivation, our communication skills. Now we get to put it into practice. Now we're going to implement those things that we've been thinking about and educating ourselves about, that intelligence that we've just generated, and we're going to put it even more into practice. And we do that through boundaries and resilience. Boundaries are a gift. Having healthy boundaries is a gift that you give to yourself and others that you encounter. Mastering the art of healthy boundaries fosters communication, it fosters healthy expectations, and it helps you to develop healthy relationships. Boundaries are not a do not cross line in the sand. A lot of people think, well, if I have a boundary, if I say I don't want this to happen, that means it's never going to happen or I can never change my mind. Healthy boundaries are strong but flexible. Okay, so having healthy boundaries means evaluating the current situation and then demonstrating how that fit or determining how that fits into your current experience. So we want to look at your priorities. We want to allow for exceptions and allow for changes as long as they are appropriate, as long as they're comfortable to you, and as long as they're allowing your needs and the needs of others to be met. So you're always going to be negotiating your boundaries. And you always have the right to change your mind and change your boundaries. So right now, you may enjoy having a roommate. And then maybe in a year or two, you decide you don't want to have a roommate anymore and you want to live on your own. You don't have to live with that roommate forever. You have the right to change your boundaries around your living situation and move into a place on your own. The same applies to relationships. You can definitely and should constantly apply this to child rearing or dealing with anyone in your life. You know, maybe those kids are not behaving with the cell phone and you have to take the phone from them for a while to draw that boundary about what is and is not good behavior. Now, when they earn that trust back, we're going to talk about trust as well. When they earn that trust back, you can then loosen that boundary again and give them the phone back. It's all about drawing those healthy boundaries that are both strong and flexible. I want you to be able to change your mind. I want you to be able to make exceptions when it's appropriate to make exceptions and feel confident in doing that. I want you to feel good when you decide to say no about something. I want you to do it respectfully. There's always a healthy and respectful way to communicate those boundaries. But I want you to know how to change your mind. I want you to feel confident in your ability to set your own boundaries and make your own decisions and change your mind when necessary. And then we decide how to communicate that in a healthy way. That communication piece is absolutely key, because if you're not communicating the boundaries, nobody else is going to know. So maybe you hate to get phone calls after 8 o'clock at night and you've got a friend that constantly calls you at 9:30 at night. And this friend might have no idea that that's a boundary for you. They may have no idea that you like to turn in early or you like that private time at night, and they just like catching up with you at the end of the day, or that's a convenient time for them to call and they have no idea that that's a boundary for you. But if you say to them gently or nicely, you know, I really like to shut down at about 8 o'clock at night. So I would appreciate it if maybe you wouldn't call after that. That's a very healthy way to communicate that boundary, to communicate that expectation. And now that person knows how you feel about it. And because you communicated it in a healthy way, they also don't feel attacked. So they're able to receive that message. That healthy social communication is really important to allow people to receive the message that you're trying to give them about that boundary. So we want to make sure that we're always communicating with others in that healthy way. Now that we have our healthy boundaries set, we're going to talk about resilience. Resilience is growing where you're planted. And my favorite line here is just remember, shit is fertilizer. Allow it to help you grow. We all go through things in our life. We all go through challenges. We all get hit with those debris pieces in life. It's all about cultivating that resilience and how you manage those unexpected pitfalls in your life. Now, when you're building your resilience, it's important to also build trust within the people that you're communicating with. Trust is built one piece at a time. Let me say that again. Trust is built one piece at a time. Now, I want to emphasize this because in this culture, we often think that trust is something you're supposed to give to somebody immediately 100% when you know them. Like when you first meet somebody, especially in romantic relationships, there is this misperception that you're supposed to go in with 100% wide-eyed trust, and you, until someone does something to not give you to something bad to you, you're supposed to just trust them. That is not true. The actual opposite is true. We don't want to just give our trust away because that leaves us open and vulnerable in ways that we're not prepared to really be able to know if it's appropriate or not. We don't know someone very well. We can't protect ourselves or know what is good information to give them and not. So we build that trust one piece at a time. It's a cultivation. Just like we cultivate resilience one piece at a time, we cultivate trust one experience at a time. So that is someone calls you when they're supposed to call you. That is someone shows up for meetings. That can be as simple as high schoolers in high school or in school, anywhere, school with our young ones. They build trust, when someone invites them to sit at the lunch table. Someone keeping your secrets is building trust with you. And then, of course, the opposite is true. And that happens to varying degrees. It's important to balance those things. It's not the same if somebody spread your business all over town. That's a big, huge breach of trust, as opposed to if somebody was a day or two late getting back to you. So it's different levels of trust. You don't necessarily cut somebody out of your life and draw a hard-lined boundary because they forgot to call you back for a day or two. But if somebody is being abusive, if somebody is constantly saying mean things to you, if somebody is spreading your business all over town, if someone is doing something to harm you, you may need to take a harder lined boundary with that person. That trust is built one piece of at a time, and then you adjust your boundaries accordingly. So just like the different levels of the debris that we get hit with in life, sometimes we get stuck in traffic. It's annoying, and we got to deal with our feelings about that, but it's not the end of the world. Sometimes a refrigerator comes into our world and we're all hit by a pandemic, or you lose a job. Resilience comes around flexing those boundaries in a healthy way, combined with those emotional intelligence principles that we talked about, and then growing our support plan. Our support plan is our last piece here for today. Oh, almost last piece. I've got one more after this. Your support plan is something that is just as important as any business plan, just as important as any health plan, just as important as any co-parenting plan. Your support plan is something that you can put in place to help you cope with those bad days, to help you cope with the debris in life. I have friends that I can text when I'm having a rotten day, and I can send them a goofy emoji about being stuck in traffic and being annoyed by it. And then I feel a little better because I needed to talk to somebody and my friends were available for that. It can be that simple. Or it can be very complicated. It can be more in depth. I don't want to say complicated. It can be more in depth. Many of us need to have a therapist on hand or be working with a coach. There was one point in my life where I was working with a therapist, a personal coach, and a business coach because I had a new business and I was going through a lot in my personal life. So in addition to my personal support team, I had a very, very strong professional support team. Your support plan should always include a combination of coping techniques that you can use in the moment. So we talked about that. taking a deep breath when we get frustrated in traffic. That's a coping technique you can use in the moment based on that self-awareness. I get annoyed, I get impatient. Take a deep breath. That's the coping technique in the moment. Journaling, yoga, meditation, and other self-care measures. Those are the second piece of your support plan. So at the end of the day, take the time to break down what happened to you today, or stretch it out on a yoga mat. Or if you can't get down on a yoga mat, there are lots of chair yoga moves that I can show you, and things that we can do to stretch our body, to relieve some of that tension and take care of our body, and also take care of our mind at the same time. That is part of our support plan. Those first two are ways that we take care of ourselves. Now, externally, I want your support plan to also include, quote, paid or professional supporters. So that could be therapists, that can be medical doctors, that can be professional coaches, that can be places like Center of Life that are doing these wellness workshops. This is, it's a professional supporter. You may not pay money for it, but it is a professional supporter that can help you through that. Someone that is trained to and there for the purpose of helping you through whatever it is that you're going through, or whatever it is that you need. When your car breaks down, you take it to the mechanic. That's a paid supporter. He's going to charge you to work on that car. He's going to charge you for parts. That's a paid supporter, and that's actually part of a support plan, especially for someone like myself. My business is largely dependent upon my vehicle, so that mechanic is a pretty big part of my support team as needed. I know some of you use public transportation. Andrea was just on the van on the way home. So that is a form of a professional or paid support that's very important to her world. And then your unpaid supporters, that's your friends, that's your family. It's important to have those people that you're able to build healthy trust with. Again, that doesn't mean that we keep people in our lives that do us dirty all the time. That means that we have healthy boundaries. We accept people into our world that treat us well, that build that trust, that don't spread our business around town, that invite us to their table, so to speak. Those people that show up for us, those people that we're able to build that trust and your healthy support with. That support plan is just as important as any other thing that you can sit down and think through and help you plan for your life, because we're all constantly hit with so many changes. That's why I say that these emotional agility pieces should always be part of the conversation and always part of your growth process, because life changes constantly. It's not a set it and forget it. It's not like you learn it once and it is just forever perfect. You're not going to sit here in this class today and then immediately go out into the world and forever be this perfect Zen person who is 1,000% emotionally aware and perfect all the time. That's not how it works. It's more like an up and down journey with a lot of curves in between, and then something happens and that knocks you for a loop, and then you feel better for a little while, and then something else happens and that knocks you for a loop. And that's why the support plan is so important, because of those unexpected things that are always going to come at us. I tell every one of my students, I tell every one of my clients, I wish that I could put you in a bubble. I wish that I could protect you from everyone that bothers you, from all of the problems in the world. I wish that I could solve all of the challenges and protect you from anything negative, but I don't have that power. But the power I do have is to give you the ability to cope with all of that. So that is where all of this tonight comes from. These are the tools that are going to enable you to cope with all of those unexpected. This support plan is what will help you to get through those bad days. It's what will help you to get through those challenging moments, whether they're small or whether they're those big refrigerators through the front door that we just don't know what to do with right away, and we need to get through them. That support plan will really help you to get through those difficult times. And then the final piece I want to leave you with today is building your confidence. I've just shown you how to start that conversation about emotional intelligence and emotional agility. Now I want to give you some tips about confidence. Now, I teach a lot of classes about marketing and I teach a lot of classes about social media. So when people are considering being on camera, confidence is always part of the conversation. So that's a lot of where this lesson comes from, but it applies just as much to you being out in the world as it does to anyone being on camera or anyone that is seeking to communicate with others via a visual medium like we're doing right now. Now, the first piece of developing that confidence is be nice to yourself. Please be nice to yourself. Give yourself some grace. A little grace goes an absolutely long way. Mistakes are okay. You're going to make mistakes. Don't be too hard on yourself. Learn from them. Being kind to yourself reduces your anxiety, and reducing your anxiety will always lead you to better results. It will always lead you to healthier boundaries. It will always lead you to more positivity in your world. So I want you to give yourself grace for whatever it is that you're going through, whatever mistakes you've made. And I want you to be kind to yourself. And I want to reduce that anxiety so that we can always be moving forward with a clean slate. The second piece of developing confidence is to prepare and to practice. Prepare for your day, whatever that means for you. If you're going to be on camera, for me, that means putting on some makeup, making sure the hair looks at least kind of cute. Sometimes it rebels against me. For others, that may mean something as simple as preparing yourself lunch before you leave for the day, or sending the kids to school with a packed lunch. Taking the time to prepare for that ahead of time, and maybe packing it the night before, or knowing that you're getting up to pack it in the morning, those preparation steps make you more comfortable in the moment. So the more you're able to prepare ahead of time, the better off you're going to be. So make your appointments and then review your calendar every day. The key to preparation is to just keep moving forward and to try to think ahead of the game one more step. So like I said, look at your calendar, see what's coming up, and get ready for it ahead of time. The third piece of confidence is getting in the zone. So we prepared ahead of time. Now, in the moment, we want to take the time to set the stage for success. So if you're getting ready to go out of the house for the day, make sure you've got everything you need to go about your day. Do you have your keys? Do you have your wallet? Do you have your cell phone? What is it that you need to set the stage for success for the day? What are you wearing? What is that projecting? Do you look cute? Do you feel comfortable? Which is more priority for you today? Maybe it's all of the above. For me, it's pretty much always all of the above, because I want to be cute, but I also want to be comfortable. But we're going to get in the zone. Another example for me, when I go on camera, I always have my water, and I usually have a cup of coffee or something along those lines. Today it happens to be a Diet Cherry Pepsi. So having those beverages handy, because I talk on camera constantly, get very dry, that helps me to set the stage for success. It helps me to be ready before I go. I already did step 2 with preparing and practicing. I've been given this class for 3-4 years now. So all of the materials are prepared and ready to go. I'm practiced. I'm in the zone. I've got my water. I've got my Pepsi. For you, that may mean you've checked your schedule. Lunches are packed. You're ready to go. And then the fourth piece, to tie it all together, is I want you to continue learning. Everybody here is obviously a continuous learner, or you wouldn't be sitting in a class on Wednesday evening. You wouldn't be sitting here talking to me today. So you're obviously demonstrating that you have that ambition to be a continuous learner. So look at that. You're already putting this into practice. The more you can learn about yourself, about your craft, about technology, about whatever it is that you want to learn about, or whatever it is that can help you move forward in your world, that continuous learning is absolutely key to your success anytime. And those 4 steps should really help you to build yourself up, build your confidence, be ready to go out there and rock it. We've got our pieces of emotional intelligence here. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. I want to see if anybody has any questions, if there's anything that I can answer. And I'm here for you, my loves. What can I answer? What can we do? What can we talk about? Hey there, Miss Kiyomi. We've got a quiet group tonight. Oh, you're muted, honey.
I said we do, but that is okay though.
It is okay though.
Joy or Miss Andrea, do you happen to have any questions that you'd like to put in the chat? Or if you'd like to unmute yourself, you are more than welcome to.
I do have one. What happens if somebody comes at you and they're combative in a customer service role or during the course of some volunteer work? It's something unlike traffic, that, like you said, life has challenges, or you suggest for that?
Yeah, I really suggest it's kind of a matter of balance and escalation as needed. So I come from a really strong customer service background, both dealing with people one-to-one in person in customer service situations and also on the phone. So the first line of defense, in my opinion, is always keep your own calm, because the more that, go back to that self-management piece, and keeping your own calm as much as possible is always going to help to manage that situation more. Think about it when you argue with somebody. If you're arguing with somebody and you tell them to calm down, that usually has the opposite effect. So we want to keep our own calm to try to diffuse that situation. Try to offer whatever service you can without having a specific situation in mind. It's hard to brainstorm that off the top of my head, but you want to kind of try to negotiate with somebody. If they continue to come at you, or they seem to be getting violent, or the situation continues to escalate or get worse, it can be appropriate to remove yourself from the situation. It can be appropriate to call for help. If it's a customer service situation and you're an employee and you're dealing with like a belligerent customer or something along those lines, the next escalation step would be to bring in a manager. It's their job to deal with that. And then that manager has to then also cope with that situation, try to de-escalate it, try to calm it down as best as possible, make whatever offers of conciliation you can. I'm sorry for your experience. I hear what you're saying. Here's what I can do to rectify the situation. But I think the most important thing is to try to keep your own composure as much as possible. Is that helpful, Joy?
Yeah, it took me a minute to take myself on mute, but yes,
Oh, no,
that's
that's okay.
very.
How else can I help? You ladies are wonderful.
I think you're wonderful. Thanks for taking your time to do this for me.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you, Joy, for joining us. I don't see any questions on Facebook. I'll give a couple more seconds. Joy or Miss Andrea, if you happen to have any last minute questions that are coming across. I do see a hand. Okay, Miss Andrea.
Hello, I have enjoyed your presentation.
Oh, thank you, Miss Andrea. How are you? I miss you.
Busy,
I
tired,
feel
and
you.
cold.
What question can I answer for you?
Well, I was thinking about how I had heard it one time in saying, people saying, and me too, I got up on the wrong side of the bed. So when you get up in the morning, you try to pre-plan or get organized and you just can't seem to get it. Does that mean you have to follow that mode or move throughout the day? Or can you change courses in the middle of the stream?
You can change courses midstream. You can change your course mid-moment. And that support plan that I talked about is a big part of that. So I want you to know who you can talk to on those days and who can you express that to. So there's two keys here to moving past those I rolled out of the the bed in a bad mood, or something happened and now I'm in a bad mood. When we want to move past that, we want to fall back on that support plan, and we want to fall back on these confidence steps. Okay. So just like in that goofy Taylor Swift song, we want to shake it off. We want to shake it off. We want to know who's on our support team that we can call when we're feeling like that, and maybe vent about it for a few minutes, and then we let it go. And then we're going to prepare for our next, that's really the preparation piece is, okay, how can I now turn my attention to something else? So you've already become self-aware enough that you're identifying, okay, I'm having a bad day or I'm in a bad mood. Okay. And now you're moving into that self-management piece. How do I shake that off? So that's knowing who you can call to vent to and then shake it off. What kind, maybe you put music on. What works to get you out of a bad mood? Maybe you put on your favorite songs. Maybe you call your best friend. Maybe you know, this is silly, but I like to watch the squirrels out my office window. I find them amusing. It's literally shorthand with my friends when we get our ADHD moments, we call each other squirrels. And I literally will find myself zoning out looking at the squirrels, but they make me smile. So that's okay. Maybe it's listening to the birds outside or going down to the library. Get yourself out of the environment. That can go a long way to changing that viewpoint. But do something to lighten up your mood, and then you move it on. Does that make sense?
It does, but like when you keep telling yourself, or you hear someone else telling yourself, I'm jacked up, I should just give up, throw in the towel, feeding that negativity into that thought. Can you replace that with some kind of positive thoughts or words, or just say encouraging things, encouraging instead of discouraging?
Yes, absolutely. And that is the key to it, is catching the thought or catching the statement and then changing it. Okay. So I'm really down in the dumps. I had a client that signed on yesterday, and the first words out of her mouth was everything sucks.
Ooh.
And I'm like, okay, well, let's take a minute. And first of all, let's reframe that a little bit. I know everything doesn't suck, because I know you have a roof on your head, over your head, and I know you have clothes on your back and food in your belly. So we've got some things to be grateful for. And then we looked at the opposite side of that. And I said, okay, so we've agreed that not everything sucks, but then tell me about what does. And I let her vent for a little while. We talked about what was bugging her and what she was down about. And then we talked about some ways to get out of it. So you can manage those feelings by changing the thought. And you just do that step by step, Andrea. Everyone that comes in, you just change it. I'm not going to think that way. Not everything in my life is terrible. It's okay to acknowledge the things that are bad. I don't believe in toxic positivity and acting like everything's all right when it's not. But it's about balance. You know what I mean? So something in your life may be not great, or may be wrong, or something that's not ideal. But we also want to acknowledge that there's good things about it as well. And that helps to kind of neutralize things a little bit more and take a more balanced approach. And then from there, it's silly things like lifting your mood through music, lifting your mood through a nice cup of tea, or whatever it is that could be calming or soothing to you. I usually grab a cup of coffee, usually an expensive one.
Thank you. That do help. And as everything else you said, it can fit in, but I've known myself to say to you, I don't have the patience I used to have. You said,
We've had this conversation.
and at the time I might not really be feeling that. I just say that out of
I
kind of
know.
a
I know, Miss
conversation to
Andrea.
start an icebreaker. But then there's other things I can say instead of saying those kinds of things. So
Yep.
I tend to change my thoughts and change my things because all is good. Thank you.
And you can choose to not hold on to that stuff, because frankly, it's just not worth it, Andrea. You know, and I think I've said this to you actually before. Like, it's not worth being upset about. You know, there's a lot of good we can choose to look at in the world. You know, today was a beautiful day in Pittsburgh. It's gotten a little cloudy now, but it was a beautiful sunshiny day in Pittsburgh. We don't get enough of those. So we can choose to look at those positives. And I know that you are working on your patience. So I just want you to keep taking those deep breaths, girl. I really think for you, the patience is all about taking those deep breaths and taking a pause.
Well, I'll say this as his testimony. I have been like stuck on Mr. Rogers lately
Oh,
and reading some of his quotes and thoughts and thinking about, well, when he was in his neighborhood, I should say, Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, saying
uh-huh,
he came from Latrobe and he
uh-huh.
adopted Squirrel Hill as his neighborhood. And trying to think about that, I was like, well, I mean, the thoughts and everything I did in my teaching, but not as a growing up with him as a lot of children did. And I wasn't a child, but he brought me back to a childlike perspective of just feeling good about what I was doing,
Yeah.
feeling unique, and all the thoughts and things he said just kind of hit me to my heart and helped me to be a better teacher to my children. I mean, to the children in my classroom. I called them out. Well, anyway, I
Perfect.
started, even though I'm no longer teaching, I'm starting to look at him again and a
Yeah,
different concept of bringing him into my home. He's a
that's
good
great.
buddy in my home, not in just in my neighborhood, in my
Yeah.
home. Because I'm doing a lot of homework at home now, or
Yeah.
classwork, or Zooming.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you're
And when I
zooming.
get impatient, I just think about Mr. Rogers. I
Yeah.
start singing one of his tunes, and I feel better after I say it. Thank
There's
you.
That's absolutely perfect, Andrea. That's the perfect illustration of doing that. That is absolutely perfect. Keep doing that. I have a really goofy one. I've been watching YouTube videos of golden doodle puppies. I've specifically started following this one woman in North Carolina. The page is Doodles of North Carolina. And I'm like obsessed with how this woman raises her puppies and then breeds them. So for me, that makes me giggle. It makes me feel good. And that's the kind of silly stuff that I do. Miss Andrea, is there anything else I can do to be helpful to you this evening?
No, I'm done. I'll let you go have your chicken wing.
Well, don't forget to call me back, honey. I know we've both been busy. I'm just going to slide that in there.
Okay.
Those were really great questions. Thank you so much, Miss Andrea and Joy. And just, reflecting on some of those things, Connie had talked about, part of our support plan is knowing who we can call. And sometimes that also involves some of those paid or volunteer professionals, right? So I know Connie has done a wonderful job with asking, how can I help you right now? So please know that, of course, you can call on Connie. Devon and I are here for all of you that are watching, that are here in our community. You are always welcome to call or text or email us, even if you just need a listening ear. We can't ever promise that we have, whatever the solution might be, but we do promise that we will listen and we will try to find a resource for you. And just thinking too a little bit more on, how do we change our mindset? Like when we're thinking about professionals too, there's lots of different modalities of healing and therapy. There's cognitive behavioral therapy, which is like specifically kind of thinking about how to change our thought patterns. And so when you work with a therapist, it is different than talking to your friends. I know sometimes people are like, well, I have my friends and I vent with them and that makes me feel better. But when you work with a therapist, it's a treatment plan, right? So they're really able to work with you on the core of where some of these thoughts are and where you would like them to go. And I really liked, Miss Andrea, when you talked about Mr. Rogers and you talked about, kind of being grounded back in that childlike perspective. And so I would really just encourage everyone watching and to follow Miss Andrea's lead in terms of just holding on to that childlike simplicity perspective of joy and just being able to know that it comes from little things, right? It can come from singing the Mr. Rogers theme song, or it can come from like a cup of coffee, or, it can come from watching golden doodle videos or cat videos, or, whatever joy looks like to you. It can be something small. And I think that that's wonderful. So that's definitely a different way that we can do that. But Devon, did you have any comments or questions or anything else before we go ahead and end for the evening?
I just wanted to thank Connie and everyone joining, and of course, Kiyomi, for always being a great host. Just some things that kind of came up as you were talking about our super secret skill set. Just boundaries was one of the things that really rang for me, and building that boundary, and also knowing that your boundary can change. It doesn't have to be the same as it was even yesterday. So those things really just even spoke to me. But also, I loved how you started off, Connie, with it being all about leadership and this emotional intelligence, and what that looks like for you. But it's also being a leader, and a leader in your life, and a leader around to your friends, your family, to show like, hey, this can work for you, and you already have the skills to do what works for you. So but I think it was very on time. I think it was very informative, and I always, just thank Connie for bringing this and even our last wellness workshop, bringing this information to our community. And of course, thank you, Joy and Miss Andrea, for joining. But that's about it.
Thank you all, ladies. This
Thank
is
you for having us and for making it accessible. I registered at the last minute with a scheduling conflict that canceled, and you still had closed captions free. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Joy. It's a pleasure for us to be able to do that for you. That's like the basics. Everyone deserves to be able to have those services. So thank you.
Absolutely. I'm so honored to be here. I love it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Connie, again, for everything, for, blessing us with 2 weeks of, your knowledge. So thank you so much for that. Just as a reminder to everybody, this is recorded. So we will post it on YouTube, and we will share that link, and we'll make sure to share Connie's information in the chat if you'd like to reach out to her for anything else. But Connie, do you have any other closing remarks you'd like to end on?
No, I'm in good shape. Just thank you so much, everybody. I'm here for you. If anybody wants to reach out, I am here. I'm here for it. It is what I love to do. It's what I'm here to do. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody watching at home. And thank you for joining us. Have a great rest of your
Thank
evening.
you all.
Have
Bye,
a great night,
Connie.
everybody.
Bye, Devon. Bye, everyone. Joy.